السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. For those of you who are not Syrian, it may be hard to grasp what December 7th, 2024 meant to Syrians. Those Syrians living in the country and those of us who don't live in the country. So I'd like to go ahead and paint a picture for everyone here so that you can hopefully understand what it means to be Syrian, both before and after the fall of Bashar al-Assad and his government. In 1963, Hafez al-Assad, the father of Bashar al-Assad, took over the country of Syria through a military coup. And to give you some context, Hafez al-Assad was a secular Alawite socialist who took control of the government by rising up in the army with members of his family and other Alawites. And in 1970, he became the president of Syria. And so essentially from 1963 until now, until his son was overthrown last year, he ruled the manner as if it was a mafia. And so things that we take for granted in this country, such as personal liberty, religious freedom, concepts that we don't think about in America, were denied to Syrians in general. And so, again, to paint a picture, to give you examples, let's say you were a shopkeeper in Syria. You might just be minding your own business, and then someone from the security forces might stop by and start talking to you and tell you you need to pay a fee for protection. And you might say, well, why should I have to pay? I'm not doing anything. There's no need for protection. I'm just a shopkeeper minding my own business. If you paid, he might move on. He might still harass you in some manner. And that was if you were lucky. If you didn't pay, then a number of things could happen. He might decide to beat you right there in the streets, in front of the general public, in front of your family. It didn't matter to them. If he decided, he might arrest you. And once you were arrested, then you were taken to prison. And in prison, you were tortured. You were tortured physically, emotionally, mentally, and if you were lucky, you might be released. And if you were unlucky, for many people, you were never heard from again. And for those of you who followed the events of Syria after December 7th, you might have seen images of the infamous Sidnaya prison. And you see images there that make you things that Hollywood couldn't concoct. Literally a hole in the ground with cages full of people who who didn't know if they were ever going to leave. Sometimes they got food, sometimes they didn't. They barely saw the sun. People who were there as teenagers and were released after December 7th and became old. They became old through aging and through the torture. And if you tried to practice Islam, if you tried to be religious, if you tried to go to the masjid, someone might stop you and ask you, why are you going to the masjid? Why do you have a beard? And so you get the picture. It was oppressive. It was oppressive for 62 years. And it's obviously hard for us to grasp this because none of us lived through this. But I heard stories from my grandparents and from my parents that made me grasp some of what it meant to be Syrian if you lived in the country of Syria. And for many of us, our families left. They left because they didn't want to live under this type of oppression. They didn't want to live in a country where literally everything you said had to be filtered. As we all know in this country, one of the problems is that people say too much. They don't have any filter. Over there, everything was through a filter. And so it was difficult. It was barely livable. And only Allah knows how people lived there for 62 years in those conditions. And I didn't even mention the economic situation. To this day, 90% of the people in Syria live under the poverty line. And if you don't know what that means that you live under $3.65 a day. I'm pretty sure none of us have ever experienced that here. $3.65, like that's just, how do you eat? How do you live in an apartment? How do you function here in America? You can't. And so the situation was like this for 62 years. So for Syrians, December 7th was something that was nothing short of a miracle. And many Syrians, myself included, never thought that that Bashar al-Assad would ever leave. We thought maybe he would die and then somebody less horrible would come and take his place and things could slowly get better. But none of us ever conceived that it would happen in such a quick fashion. Within a week, major cities such as Halab, Homs, and then finally Dimashq were overthrown, and the country and Bashar al-Assad fled like the coward that he is, and the country was finally in the hands of the people. And it's something that this is, as you can all grasp now, this is generational trauma that was finally overcome, and it still to this day brings joy to many Syrians that they are able to live their lives again. It's as if they were reborn. And so the opportunity came for me to go back to Syria, and I am a trained dentist in this country, and I was able to go back and treat patients there. And I've been to Syria before as a kid. I was 11 years old back in 1996, and I was able to, and when I went there at that time, Syria was a very nice country. You have the richness of the history and the heritage there, the masajid everywhere. You have the presence of Islam and peace and serenity. When I went there, you could see the trauma that they suffered. You could see that you could see that many of them were malnourished. You could see that many of them were not doing well off financially. You could see that they were in poor conditions. And much of the country was covered in garbage. Even in the big city, Damascus, that I was in, much of it was covered in garbage. And if you go to the outskirts, you see certain areas like Daraya, where it's complete rubble. If you look at a picture of Daraya now, it looks like Gaza. Just uninhabitable, nothing left but destruction. And when I was treating patients there, they told me that so I volunteered in a dental school in Damascus, and the dental school, the facilities are very old. They're basically from the 1960s. The facilities are functional, but because of the oppression they went through, because of the inadequate, just the lack of attention and the lack of dedication to the people, they were only seeing one special needs patient a week in that clinic. Even though they had the manpower, they had the supplies, it's just neglect. And so I went with an organization called AHR, Atlantic Humanitarian Relief, and I was able to treat patients with the organization, and I was able to treat at least 3 patients a day, sometimes 4, for about 4 or 5 days. And so, as you can gather, the situation there has been pretty terrible for a long time, and the country, even till today, even after the fall of Bashar al-Assad, is unfortunately still basically a broken country. However, there are several things that gave me hope during my time there. The people there are genuine. The people there have a renewed, as I said, they have a renewed hope. They are reborn. After being oppressed, after living under a tyrant for 62 years, they have something that they look forward to. So even though they still live under the poverty line, it's like they have life again. And all of them were thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's something that I sincerely believe is a wisdom behind hardships, especially a hardship like that, severe hardship, is that when you go through something like that, it either brings out the worst or the best in you. And those people, alhamdulillah, they have iman. And so for them, it showed that they're sincere and that they have hope and that there is so much potential for those people. And that's why we're here today. We have an opportunity to invest in that country and have a positive impact, have a lasting impact that will affect not just the country, but the region and the ummah. And yes, there are plenty of causes for us to donate to. As we all know, our ummah has suffered for a long time now, whether it be in Syria, whether it be in Palestine, whether it be in Sudan or in Yemen. The list goes on and on. And these causes all deserve our recognition, and they all deserve our attention. But we're here tonight to focus on Syria and hopefully make a positive impact. As it says in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ومن آياته خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم إن في ذلك لآيات للعالمين. And from his signs are that he created the heavens and the earth and the differences in your tongue and your skins. Surely in it are signs for those with intellect. And I want you to pay attention to this ayah because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the creation of the heavens and the earth, and right after that he put the differences in our languages, in our skin tones, because he wanted to show us that despite our differences, we should be a united ummah. We should see the creation of the heavens and the earth and compare it to the different cultures and the different languages within our ummah. And this concept of collaboration is unfortunately still something hard for many of us to grasp. I remind myself that I need to pay more attention to other causes in the ummah, whether that be Palestine, or whether that be Sudan, or so forth and so on. But one thing that motivates me are people who are genuine, people who have ikhlas for the different causes. So you have people like Brother Muhammad Sha'lan, Hafidhullah, who he was the one who basically requested that I help out with this organization. I didn't have much intention of helping out with a charity organization until he basically roped me in. And if you want to seek an example of ikhlas, then this brother right here is that example, mashallah. You have Sheikh Kamal al-Makki, Hafidhullah, who hails from Sudan. May Allah save the people of Sudan and grant them victory and prosperity over their oppressors. And one thing that I genuinely appreciate is, as a dentist, I see a lot of patients from Sudan, and when Syria was freed, almost all of them came up to me and they congratulated me on overthrowing the tyrant Bashar al-Assad, on the victory of Syria over the tyrant. And it made me happy, not just because I'm Syrian, but also because it shows that other people in the ummah care about these causes. And it's something that should unite us and motivate us to become better on an individual level, and better as a society, as an ummah. As you all know, the ayah, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ I'm sorry, trying to remember the ayah now. I don't know, subhanAllah, I can't remember it now, but it'll come back to me. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not change the condition of a people until you change what's in yourselves. And so, as I was telling Sheikh Kamal, these causes should motivate us as a wake-up call. It's because you can't just see images like this, like the destruction that happened in Syria, the destruction that happened in Palestine, and not act. It's just not good for your soul. There has to be an outlet for this negative energy that we get from seeing the destruction and the dhulm in the world. And so, for me personally, I've chosen to do what I can in this event for the people of Syria. And I'm hoping you will all recognize the importance and contribute, invest. Because it's not just about the people of Syria, it's also doing this fi sabilillah. Because that's what we should all be inclined to at every moment in our lives, as doing everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A sheikh once told me, and it makes so much sense, he said, Wallahi, the people that you give charity to are more in need, Wallahi, you are more in need of the charity that you give than the people who receive it. And it makes so much sense, because the charity that they receive from us, yes, it goes towards improving their dunya. But the charity that we give goes towards our akhirah. And ultimately, that's what we should all be striving for, is for the akhirah. And whatever ajr we give, whatever donations we give, will only serve us and elevate our ranks in the akhirah. Bi-idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in conclusion, I hope that you will all see the value of donating to this noble cause. I hope you will see that this is something that can have a positive impact not just in Syria, but in our ummah as well. And eventually, it will give us some chance of improving ourselves and our ummah. Whatever good I have spoken is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whatever mistakes I have made are my own. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.